सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयम् नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Hari Om. My pranams to Pujya Swami Vidyalayas, all the Swamijis present here, to all the great wonderful scholars present here for this beautiful, amazing seminar. Generally it is said in scholars' places people don't smile. I don't know whether that is true, but I'll find out for now. Second point, somebody asked one of the speakers, how long can I talk? So the audience was very intelligent. The audience said, you talk as much time as you want. After 10 minutes, we will go away. So it is very important that we remember how much time we have. And something very amazing about this seminar is that it is first of a kind. Today's NAP is based on Deen Dayal Upadhyaya ji's Ekatma Manav Shiksha Kram, Integral Humanism. So we have Vivekananda studies. So this beautiful seminar will herald Chinmaya studies for time to come. And my pranams to all the organizers for making this momentous conference happen, which will be remembered for years to come, for decades, for centuries to come. So we are here to discuss Pujya Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda's vision of education, Swamiji's contribution to education. I will organize the thoughts into a few aspects. First, about Pujya Gurudev himself, because the visionary has to be known to completely understand the vision as well. Second, the time and the challenge that Pujya Gurudev experienced and Pujya Gurudev answered, replied. Third, what did Gurudev talk about? The role of education, the importance of value-based education that Pujya Gurudev gave, how Pujya Gurudev envisioned the role of the Chinmaya Vidyalayas and the Chinmaya institutions, and then what Gurudev spoke about the role of teachers. We will talk about how this entire philosophy was structured into the Chinmaya Vision Program. So what way it was all created. And then finally, we will end with the Chinmaya education institutions. So let us begin right away. It is very important to remember that Pujya Gurudev was first of all a revolutionary freedom fighter. Gurudev was not a pacifist, not a negotiator, but one who challenged the status quo of whatever wrong was there, either within India or external. Gurudev had the courage, had the determination to face it, challenge it, and change the course of destiny of our nation. Gurudev broke gender differences, Gurudev broke caste differences, Gurudev broke all kinds of such wrong differences that existed for whatever reason in the human destiny of India. So when changes needed to be done, Pujya Gurudev was radical enough, Pujya Gurudev was courageous enough. Bhagavad Gita says that the first quality for practicing truth, for being even a realized master, abhayam sattva samshuddhi, one should be fearless, and that is what Pujya Gurudev showed to us. So thus Pujya Gurudev's work was Also not just aligning with whatever existed, but even challenging the status quo and taking things forward. Goodness many times is passive, but goodness serves when goodness is active. Human history and even our epics have told us that goodness sometimes needs to be aggressive as well. So Pujya Gurudev had all aspects of goodness in him. Gurudev was loving, Gurudev was kind. At the same time, Gurudev's goodness was active, and when required, Gurudev's goodness was even aggressive. So thus, it is in this background that we are trying to understand how Gurudev changed the face of education in India. All of us know that after 1,000 years of suppression, we inherited the Macaulay's system of education. We have to remember that thought makes systems. So Macaulay's thought that we inherited, and unfortunately we kept carrying forward for almost 70 years. Macaulay's idea was that his idea of education was that India needs to be civilized. So civilizing mission was what he took out. He said, I have never found one among them who would deny that a single shelf of good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia. He went on to say that we have to create a class of persons, Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. So there was this complete rejection of the Indian knowledge systems, complete rejection of anything wonderful and great in India. But the history of India speaks a completely different story. It speaks of a great nation of great achievements, not only in the field of knowledge, but also in the field of economy and whatever areas that we took up. India led, and that knowledge was what was suppressed, that knowledge was what was not available, and that knowledge was what Pujya Gurudev wanted to bring back to India. So therefore, what was required, as Pujya Gurudev said, through individual transformation alone can world transformation be achieved. Because each person makes the community, each person makes the society, each person makes the world. So therefore, the work has to be at the individual level, resulting in the transformation all over. When we talk about transformation of a person, that is the ultimate result of transformation of the character of the person. But what is character made of? Character is made of values. So the values build the character of the person, and therefore education, re-education has to be the education in the values that is being inculcated in the student. So now where does those values arise from? Pujya Gurudev, after studying all the philosophies of the world, we should remember that Pujya Gurudev was even an agnostic. Pujya Gurudev has studied the philosophies of the world, and then he was convinced that the values of the Sanatana Dharma is what would be enduring. That would be enduring not only for Bharat, but for the well-being of the whole world, because Sanatana Dharma in itself, by itself, carries those values for universal brotherhood, for universal peace and universal love. So thus the practice of Sanatana Dharma, the solution that it gives is not only a solution for Bharat, but it is a solution for the whole world. So therefore Gurudev, in order to reach each individual, started what is called in Chinmaya Mission the grassroots level activities, where each member, each individual in the society will be touched of different age groups. So for small children, Swamiji started classes called Bali Vihar. For youth, he started Yuva Kendra. Gurudev started Devi groups, study groups. We have to just try to visualize, try to think of what depth Gurudev went to reach each individual, because cultural change has to happen also at the thought level, and each individual has to be reached in the society. So therefore, Gurudev started those classes. However, Gurudev's vision was not limited to a small group of people, but to the entire world. So therefore, reaching the masses becomes very, very important. And thus, working with people through the education system. Education system is the biggest system that is available for thought change in any nation. So therefore, Pujya Gurudev, wanting to change from the Macaulayan system, brought in this system where Gurudev focused on the system of education, where Gurudev talked about bringing in culture as the rootedness in education. Pujya Gurudev said, if among the intelligent and the educated, we watch an almost complete breakup of character, it is the nation's cultural bankruptcy at this moment that is the cause of it. Our cultural revival plan must have necessarily a minimum of 3 schemes. The schemes to revive manhood, womanhood, and childhood. Gurudev saw education as a way to mold the children into effective men and women, adequate to meet their personal, social, national problems and challenges. So education that Pujya Gurudev envisioned wanted to awaken people not only to their own limited lives or to their family's needs, but to look at the nation in totality. Pujya Gurudev said, educated men alone count in the rediscovery of a nation. These are Gurudev's words, and there Gurudev goes on to say, education, sans religion and philosophy is but a technical training. So for Gurudev, education meant education in religion and philosophy as well. So what was the role of education that Gurudev saw? So the role of education Gurudev saw was the training of both the head and the heart. So Gurudev said, discipline in the level of thinking is the goal to be achieved by every national education scheme. Discipline in the level of thinking. Second, Gurudev said, what is the heart of education? Unless we destroy the unhealthy values and come to successfully replace them with healthier values of life, the metamorphosis of an ugly, incompetent, and hateful man into a beautiful, efficient, and loving citizen can never be accomplished. This is the heart of education, inculcating healthy values of love and the spirit of self-sacrifice for the sake of others. Pujya Gurudev saw Chinmaya Vidyalayas as the tool to bring this ideal educating institutions in the country. Pujya Gurudev once said, do not say that we were the first to start it and boast over it, because our aim is not just to be the first to start things, but to pave the way for everyone else in the country to follow what we have done, so that this becomes a movement as such. Pujya Gurudev started Chinmaya Vidyalayas with an education model focusing on culture and focusing on religion and focusing on spirituality. And today, the Bhagavad Gita teaching and so many other aspects that Chinmaya Vidyalaya follows are today being replicated by hundreds and thousands of schools across the country. And this is the fulfillment of Pujya Gurudev's vision. So Gurudev talks about Chinmaya Vidyalayas and he says, education should mold the children into effective men and women, adequate to meet the social, national problems, Chinmaya Vidyalayas are geared to give inner orientation, so badly and urgently needed for the era that we are passing through. The watchword for our nation, I have not read a quote where Gurudev is not talking about the nation whenever he is talking about education. The watchword of our nation must be character, values, integrity, and courage. Then Gurudev asked the question, will the parents cooperate with us? Will the society help us? We have hopes. The rest will determine the destiny of India. So Gurudev says, Chinmaya Vidyalayas, the schools and colleges should run in a general atmosphere of culture and religion. So value-based education was what Pujya Gurudev emphasized upon. The meaning of value-based education is important for us to remember in this particular context. The word based here has the meaning of oriented. So we understand mark-based education, which is running today, as mark-oriented education. So the whole lesson plan that we build, the whole delivery of our subjects in the class is oriented towards securing more and more marks. And in fact, we have become very, very efficient at it. Students getting today 97 seems to be getting the 10th rank in the class. We've been efficient at it because that has been the orientation, and we're becoming more and more perfect at it. However, Pujya Gurudev's vision of education was not mark-based education. Marks are going to be the result of excellence. So that's when the person becomes excellent, their actions become excellent, the outcome becomes excellent. So therefore, Gurudev did not focus on mark-based education, rather he focused on value-based education. So therefore, inculcation of the values in the student is the ultimate, final and fundamental purpose of education. So therefore, the question that the education system asks is, what happened to the child after education? Sometimes doctors say treatment given, patient died. Or surgery done, patient. Syllabus completed. Student, that is very important. How many of us sitting here who did not take up mathematics in class 11 and 12 rejoiced after the 10th standard exam? Is it not? 10 years of studying maths and I'm celebrating that I don't have to study maths hereafter. What an effect of studying mathematics. Rather, one should actually experience a sadness or a sense of feeling, I will not be able to study maths hereafter. But rather than sadness of not studying maths, there is a desperation which has been created by studying maths, and a final relief that I don't have to study that particular subject hereafter. So therefore, the effect of education has to be the values that that education is trying to incorporate. That is the whole idea. So Gurudev saw education in three aspects. Of course, the third stage being the most important and the fundamental. So Gurudev used to say that education and learning are two different words. Learning is to imbibe bookish knowledge and education is to grasp the ideals, etc. He says, resulting in complete reorientation and consequently thinking and acting in their background only. This is the transformation that Pujya Gurudev is talking about, that our life, our habits, our actions, our choices have to change. Let me give you a simple example in terms of our own living. How many of us have not studied about the preciousness of this physical body? That is what biology talks about. And yet, how many of us abuse our physical body with alcohol, with cigarettes, and with drugs? So if after education I have not understood how to take care of this body, how to worship this body, if I have not understood the divinity of this body, what has been the purpose of education? So thus the purpose of education is what Pujya Gurudev emphasized in his entirety. So Pujya Gurudev says that a fully educated man has to be able to decipher three things. First, has to understand the justice of a thing. Has to understand whether something is right or wrong. Second, has to understand the moral beauty and the ethical sanction of any particular action. Not only legally right, but also dharmically right. And third, Pujya Gurudev says the person has to also know the aesthetic value and present it very, very beautifully and live a beautiful aesthetic life. Pujya Gurudev used to call the Gurukula by a very interesting term. He used to call them Rishi universities, for all of us to understand. The moment we think about Gurukula, our imagination comes to one Rishi with a big matted hair sitting below a tree and 4 disciples sitting below him. But really, the Gurukulas of our ancient times were huge, huge universities. Can we imagine Nalanda where 3 students are sitting under one teacher and learning? No. These were huge universities that we used to run. Pujya Gurudev used to talk about Gurukulas. He used to say that people who are educated in these Gurukulas, they have to come out to become the greatest and strongest, powerful children of a great culture with a nobility, peeping through every thought and action in their life. They have to come. Yet, Pujya Gurudev says the work that needs to be done is a very, very massive task. He says the present generation may not accept the above thesis easily because it is an eternal law that nobody can appreciate readily what he himself never had. So therefore, one who has gone through the old system of education will find so much of a great challenge to implement something new because they themselves have not gone through that system. So how did this entire system and thought manifest into the structure called the CVP program, Chinmaya Vision Program? Here we should acknowledge the great work done in 1996 by 4 people: Swami Vidyalayan, Srimati Radhika Krishna Kumar, Vijay Lakshmi Vijay Kumar, and Maitreji. They were the people who structured this Chinmaya Vision Program based on Gurudev's understanding. And here I have to read out one important letter which Pujya Gurudev wrote on the beginning of the first Chinmaya Vidyalaya in 1965. And what is most amazing is this structure which was created in 1996 and the letter that was discovered while writing the Mananam series in 2015. This structure and what Pujya Gurudev wrote in that letter as to how education should be, both of them are perfect matches. Pujya Gurudev, of his will and his thought, manifests in so many different ways through the members devoted to Gurudev's work. So Gurudev writes, children are the very cream of a generation and they are the rulers and makers of tomorrow. Upon them depends the future of the nation and the safety of our culture and tradition. Let us give them a healthy physical and mental atmosphere for growth, that is integrated development. Ingrain in them respect and love for all living creatures, which is universal outlook. team spirit and national fervor, which is patriotism, and the pride in our hallowed divine culture, that is Indian culture. So going on further, integrated development is subdivided into 4 sections: physical, mental, intellectual, and spiritual development. Because the personality of a person is not just one aspect, but it is all aspects, and all of them together have to be taken through. So thus, under these 7 aspects, physical, mental, intellectual, spiritual, Indian culture, patriotism, and universal outlook, the values necessary for the development of that aspect were identified. Lessons were mapped and structured and delivered in such a way that those values are inculcated in the person. For example, lessons provided physical development, of course, through the knowledge and understanding of diet, understanding of nutrition, understanding of exercise. Not only that, the way of teaching and the way and the activities also provided for physical self-expression. So the content of the lesson would use the methodology of teaching by which physical expression, like public speaking, like dance, like theater, could also manifest. The entire environment of the school, of the college, in the classroom has to be such that it nurtures the emotional development of the person. So like that, Pujya Gurudev used to say that intellectual development, a teacher's job is to set the students to think originally and independently and give him the art of educating himself. The workload should be converted into joy loads of self-satisfaction in having done our best to carve the future leaders of the society. Like that, Indian culture and patriotism also have the same ideas. So through the Chinmaya Vision Program, Pujya Gurudev saw that through integrated development, the consciousness of the self related to the physical, mental, intellectual, and the spiritual, that expands. Second, there is the awareness and understanding and the practice of the Indian culture, which is the roots. Third, that becomes the foundation and the service area for the nation. And finally, that expands to the world in the form of universal outlook. This also became the foundation for our value education series that we had. On the national scale, how did this convert into institutions? 1965, the first Chinmaya Vidyalaya was born. We are in Kerala, and the first school was also born in Kerala in 1965. This is 61 years of service in the field of education that Chinmaya Mission has been doing. 80,000 students are studying in these Vidyalayas. We have 9 colleges across the country serving 6,500 students. And there is this Chinmaya Education Cell, which was formed to monitor, to guide, to assess, to train all these teachers as continuous improvement programs, not only in the area of culture, but also in the area of how to teach the subjects very effectively. We are very happy that many of our schools are doing amazingly well. The flagship school, the Chinmaya International Residential School, today is the #1 school in the country. And in the IB curriculum, it is among the top 10 schools of the world. It only goes on to say that when we have cultural rootedness and when we have an education system which is oriented towards this action, then excellence becomes the result of this particular kind of education. Higher education, the Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth, the Chinmaya International Foundation and the Chinmaya CIF. So the Samsthan is carrying this knowledge forward today in the field of higher education, integrating IKS into every subject. It is happening in the phases of bringing in the aspects of IKS into different topics and in different subjects. With greater research and with greater action, we look forward to having education systems itself based on the Indian knowledge system pedagogy. Finally, Pujya Gurudev's message, the concluding message now. Pujya Gurudev says, highly inspired teachers working together as a disciplined army, dedicated to the sanctity of their sacred profession, with selfless love and continuous enthusiasm, alone can mold the spiritual beauty in the growing children. The spiritual stature of the students draws nurture and nourishment not only from the words in which the lessons are taught, but also from the silent and vibrant atmosphere of spirituality created in the entire school. And Gurudev ends by saying, we shall not fail the nation and the silent demand of the innocent children growing under our care to make a cultural history of tomorrow. This is what Chinmaya education system is offering. Thank you very much. Namaste. Hari Om.